on this battle. Senator Schumer has said it. We're getting ready to advance the bill. There was the first hearing right before we left for the break, and that was in the Senate Rules Committee. The next step is the Senate Rules Committee will vote on it. The Democrats will vote yes. I assume the Republicans will vote no. And that will, in effect, tee it up for a full Senate vote. And Senator Schumer says, we're off to the races. He's committed to putting the bill on the floor of the United States Senate. I mean, this is not our first bill for by osmosis. This was to signal how important it was.
And
I'm losing my voice.
Well, I imagine you do a lot of talking. I know that we're unlikely to hit that 60 vote threshold for what everyone on this call thinks is absolutely crucial legislation for our democracy. I think you've come out as a proponent of filibuster reform. How do you see this playing out, and what role can activists take in the process of advocating for filibuster reform?
Well, Nick, to me, political change rarely starts in a government building somewhere, DC, whoever, and then trickle down. Political change is almost always from the grassroots up. So DemCast, by working with groups around the country that are sympathetic to our cause, we're going to blow the whistle on all these excuses that far-right Republicans are making. I mean, the fact is they're just plain scared. They can't win this fight, up or down. And that's why I've said, if they want to oppose the bill, they ought to, be responsible and go on out there and say that they're going to oppose the bill. This isn't complicated. Republicans should have to stand up and tell the American people why they don't think every American should have fair access to a ballot. People are always talking about, is it easy or is it hard? It ought to be easy. It ought to be fair. I mean, American people have a basic set of fairness. Is it really fair to say somebody shouldn't get handed a bottle of water when they're waiting in line on a hot day? As Joe Biden might say, get real, man. Get real.
So you think that there might be enough support for a rule change to go back to the talking filibuster?
Well, Nick, we're kind of working through. I'm not even sure you need a rule change, but you need Mitch McConnell, to basically knock off the hypocrisy. I mean, he's always, and his allies are always saying things like, well, bills should be paid for. Senator Wyden, you're the chairman of the Finance Committee. Bills should be paid for. I hear Republicans saying it all the time. But then they won't say what pay for is there for. You can't have it both ways, folks. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to force them to tell the American people, hey, here's why we don't want a fair process for people voting.
Uh-huh.
They should explain it. I mean, at one point, Mitch McConnell, remember this was one of the areas of, as John Lewis used to say, good trouble that I was involved in. Mitch McConnell opposed wealthy donors being disclosed. He said it wasn't fair to them. People might go out and make decisions on the basis of the fact they were wealthy donors. Helping wealthy allies wasn't fair. That's why there shouldn't be any disclosure. So we're going to show the American people what's fair. And that's making sure that everybody has fair access to the ballot box.
All right, let's do it. The Congress and the Biden administration were able to boil the American Rescue Plan down really succinctly to help garner public support for it. As checks in hands and shots in arms. What do you see as the the 2 or 3 key provisions in the for the People Act that could help
I,
help get Americans behind it in that way.
I think, Nick, voting ought to be fair and easy, not hard. If you want a slogan, there you are. No missing work, no waiting in lines. Guess what? That's the Oregon way. And I'm the nation's first mail-in United States senator. By the way, do you know who the nation's second mail-in United States senator was?
No.
Wasn't a Democrat, Gordon Smith. Okay, Jeff came along and beat Gordon Smith. So I like vote by mail. I believe deeply in it. In 2002, I started introducing bills every 2 years to take Oregon vote by mail national. And after the 2020 election, people came up and said, Ron, your bill became law. It passed. Everybody voted by mail. And I said, not really. The reason they all voted by mail because we had this horrible pandemic. That was the only way they could vote. People say, hell, we ought to do that permanently. So that's what we're going to try and do. And voting by mail is a big part of this legislation.
It is. Yeah. And that's how I've always voted for you.
Thank you.
Yesterday a piece came out in the New Yorker from Jane Mayer that unveiled a conversation between some McConnell people and some Koch brother affiliates, where
that's what I was alluding to.
Yeah. And so when people see that there's these backroom conversations saying like, oh, we can't win this on public opinion. Let's just kill this. We'll just kill it in Congress. People get really worried that, he's had a lot of success at killing things in Congress. And obviously he's had different levels of power at different times. And right now we have the majority, but I know people are concerned, particularly about the For the People Act, because it's so important to just everything for the next decade plus. I think people are just looking for reassurance that Senate Democrats are going to, see this through to the end. And so, do you have anything to say to those folks?
Well, what I'd say is, with your calls and your letters and your reaching out, you're going to hold everybody accountable. Every single senator, there are 100 of us, hold us all accountable. Senator Schumer said he's all in. We had the hearing. Now we have the markup. Then we go to the floor. We go process it in the committee, have the hearing. Then we go to the floor. And I'll just tell you, we know that grassroots activism makes a difference. If you had told anybody 4 years ago that Georgia would have 2 United States senators, a black fella and a Jewish fella, everybody would say, you gotta be kidding me. What planet are you residing on? Georgia's got 2 progressive senators today. And that people worked their heads off in 2020. And by the way, because it was so important, Nick, just like the legislation that we're talking about, they worked all the way into 2021. They were starting on another election cycle to get Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff in. Incredible.
Yep.
I look at those 2 on the Senate floor and I'd say, have I just descended on a whole new universe? Georgia, 2 progressive Democratic senators. Stacey Abrams, hopefully the next governor from Georgia. Oh my goodness. Yep. I think that's political change. And I guess the closing point I want to make is, guys, this does not happen by osmosis. You don't get Warnock and Ossoff and Abrams in office because you got up one morning and said, hey, I'm going to read the newspaper and hang out with the kids a little bit and watch Netflix. You get up in the morning, you say, I'm going to make those calls. I'm going to make those letters. I'm going to call people all around the country. By the way, my favorite thing, people say, well, I got Jeff and Ron, and those two kind of know what they're going to do. If you have a friend in another part of the country where there's a swing Democratic senator, and we'll give you, those names, and you went to camp with them, or you went to school with them, and you were in their wedding, call them up and say, I've never called you about politics before. I remember you stole my tuna fish sandwich when we were 12, but I never complained. I never called you up. I'm calling you now because this vote is all about the fundamental underpinnings of America. All right. So this is my call to action tonight. And I want you to know I'm all in this thing with you. And the positions I'm taking on the Finance Committee, and I'm the chairman of it. We had about half of the Recovery Act. I was on the floor handling much of the bill for 26 hours straight. And I'll tell you, all these issues, Nick and Lori and everybody, Jamie, you can see where the lines are drawn. Give you one quick example. Towards the end, the Republicans wanted to debate the child tax credit. We came up with a proposal that when we make it permanent, and we will, we'll cut child poverty in half. It's a big deal. Huge, huge development. Went through the Finance Committee. So proud of our guys. Sherrod Brown, Michael Bennett, Bob Casey. Just so proud of them. So at the end of the debate, and you could tell how strongly they felt because we'd been at it for, 20 hours. Republicans get up and say they care a lot about kids, care a lot about child credit. And whenever they talk really fast, particularly about taxes, I tell my colleagues, hold on a little bit. We'll let the Senate finance staff check this out. They go, and all about how much they love kids. So when the finance staff was done with it, they said this guts our core principle, which was in tax law for the safety net. We want to make the benefits refundable so that poor families don't have much dough. It actually operates almost as the equivalent of a grant and direct financial assistance. What the Republicans were doing with all the fast talking was gutting refundability. And I got up, I don't know how many hours I'd been on the floor. I barely knew my name at that point. It was incredible. And I said, everybody here in the chamber needs to understand this is the difference between the two parties. We're willing to work with them. They got ideas to help kids. We're all in. Great, bring them on. But we're not going to let you strip away fundamental principles. Voting is a fundamental principle. Fairness for poor families in tax law is fundamental. So I just want you guys to know it's an honor to be able to represent you in the United States Senate. And as long as I have this honor to represent you on the Senate, Finance Committee, I want you to know I'll be working with you every day, and we will never forget the kind of core principles that we're all about, which is fairness and giving everybody in America a shot at getting ahead, not just the powerful and the well-to-do. So to be continued, thanks everybody for the great work you're doing.
Thanks for joining us, sir.
All right,
really
guys.
Appreciate it.
Talk soon. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, that was awesome to have him on. I think he had to go a little earlier than we thought. So unfortunately, there are a bunch of questions for the senator that didn't get answered. But hopefully, just through the course of the conversation, some of them, some of you got some of your answers at least. I know it's really hard for him to just come out and say, yeah, we're gonna get this done and kill the filibuster, and but I think he was pointing to some real resolve on the part of the Democratic caucus to make sure that this gets done, and they're just figuring out the how. So, Lori, did it? Oh, sorry.
And say I know there's a lot on the filibuster, and there's a new coalition. It's called Fix Our Senate, that has just formed in the last 2 weeks. We had our first meeting last week. There's over 60 organizations working to end or reform the filibuster. So that is going to be a new big push, and we'll have a lot more information on that in the next couple of weeks. Their Twitter handle is Fix Our Senate. And so we're hoping to get some more Zoom calls on specifically on the filibuster, because the goal is to reform it to pass this.
Somebody asked, can we send the questions to the senator that didn't get answered? Absolutely, we'll send them. We'll send all of them along, and I don't know what we'll get back, but well, I'd be happy to send them. And thanks for that point, Jamie. So I did want to. I know Scott was here too, and I was supposed to let him jump in before we got going with the senator there. So Scott, I just added you here. Not to put you on the spot, but if you want to say anything, feel free to hop in.
I think senators always would trump me. I mean,
Yep.
obviously.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Obviously.
Love you, but yeah.
And I've been inundated, in touch with sources from the DOJ, and I'm not going to go there with everything, but I will say that, like, this is one time where I'd say watch the news tomorrow. We have a lot of things going on, and I think that people who are bad people that we've always known are bad people. I think there's going to be some people that are in deep trouble with the DOJ. That's all I'll say about that. But I just want to say I love the transition of like the positivity that everybody's had, and I think that we just keep it up. We need to tell people to get vaccinated and wear a mask, and we're going to try our best to get excuse me. We're going to try our best to get as many celebrities behind this as possible to make HR1 look as cool and glamorous as possible. We'll get there. We always got there. I remember people laughed at me the first time we did Trump Russia, and now it's like that is a word. Like people used to, we'll make it so that it works for everybody. Anyways, I just wanted to say hi, everybody's doing great work, and I have a smile on my face for the first time in 5 years, a real one. So I hope that everybody can enjoy the moment. I'm going to try and spread positivity more as well. It's really hard with such evil people in the world and such evil stories. But man, I think the truth is coming out about all these bozos and criminals, and let's just keep on it. But take breaks when you can. Anyways, thank you for doing this, Nick and Lori and Jamie. I appreciate y'all and everybody else on the call tonight. And obviously Senator Wyden rocked the house, so that was awesome. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Scott. And thanks for the teaser. We will all be paying extra attention to our news feeds in the morning because of it.
It would be somebody out of Florida now, Scott. Would it be someone out of Florida, perchance?
I just work here. I don't know. I don't know, but I would look out. I would just look out. I don't get excited about stuff, and I'm not excited in that way. I get excited about justice.
Right.
So, and you're allowed to be happy about some sort of justice. I mean, this is sex trafficking.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. Anyways, I won't go into it, but there's more details that are coming out. I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to say it. Because then it'll be someone will tweet it, and I don't know. Anyways, I won't say anything else. Let's just look at the news.
Will be good. Just tell 1,000 of your closest friends that your little secret, Scott.
Oh, yes. Nobody's listening. Let's just the one time I actually talk out loud on video. I'm like, oh, let me tell you about what I heard from I should.
Hard pass. Yeah.
And I don't want to get people, I hate people getting false excitement. I don't want to give that either. But I just see, like, it's not just Florida. there's a lot going on. And I just, I'm excited for the first time because I think we're about to turn a corner, and the current corner is harsh. The corner is a reality. And remember when we all talked about that we'd have the former guy, a lot of things that come up that are going to be for years to come. We're going to have problems. Well, these are some of these problems that we're going to see. And I think that the justice will make it clear that you know, this can never happen again. There's a lot of things that are going to happen, but I think justice is about to be served in a lot of angles, and it starts tomorrow. That's my belief. But again, take it with a grain of salt. Ignore that I ever said it. Anyway,
Well, no, actually, I think it brings up an important thing, because that these can be rabbit holes, right? I mean, I think it's totally appropriate to you know, celebrate when bad people get called out or face justice. But the way that social media works, when those kinds of things happen, it can totally take over the narrative. And the purpose of this call, of course, is trying to make sure that we're pushing a narrative on something that's totally different from that. And in some ways, big news like that'll kind of make our job harder. So I think it's good to be aware, and also good to be cognizant of the fact that we have to keep telling the good stories, talking about the American Rescue Plan and all the good that it's doing for people, talk about the For the People Act and why it's so important. So we'll keep on doing that, and also you know, enjoying any other news that comes out that that'll make us happy. Okay, so we've got somebody was just asking if we're going to record this. We are recording this. We will be posting it on our YouTube later tonight. So and we'll post it on the demcast.com/forthepeople Action Center as well, up at the top, so people will be able to see the whole recording if they're hopping off now to go somewhere else. So we had a couple other things that we wanted to touch on tonight. Jamie is going to share some info about a week of action that we have next week. That's sort of a movement-wide week of action around the For the People Act, and Lori's going to talk a little bit about the countering the GOP disinformation that's coming out about the For the People Act. Do we want to wrap up or talk? I haven't floated through the Q&A. Is there anything that we should address before we hop onto those new topics?
You know, really a lot of it's about the filibuster. So that
Okay.
seems to be the big thing.
Yeah.
And I know this seems to be a really big topic. So I'll see if there's any way in the next week or two we can get some filibuster experts on one of these calls, and we can do a whole hour on all the filibuster questions. A lot of us are just learning about this. Interesting thing though is polling is showing that average people don't care about the filibuster. So they do recommend talking about it as more of, there's a Senate rule that makes it so we can't get things passed. So
Daniel Simon just posted in chat that the best way to get filibuster reform is to not talk about the filibuster, but to talk about what we can't pass. You know, I on one of our other calls, I talked about this is why we can't have nice things.
Right.
And, you know, so I think that I really believe from the tidbits that I'm hearing and the way that they're talking in the Senate, is that they're going to pull these things up for a vote, and they're going to watch them die in the Senate. And they're going to use that as an impetus for filibuster reform. So we may see some of these bills actually fail or come close to failure before we see the filibuster reform. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to still work on it, but we have to be able to show people that you can't get what we need without making changes to the Senate. So I wouldn't be disheartened if we do see some bills that go down because of it, because I think that's what they need to be able to show their whole caucus why we have, now this, see, we have to do this. We have no choice.
Yep, agreed. And it's been our advice all along since we started this team that we really that we're in an education phase right now, and obviously, like, we as proponents and incessant worriers are going to be focusing on the filibuster ourselves and between us. But what we worry about on a team call versus what we talk about in the public space, needs, at this point, really needs to be different, and all the evidence is pointing in that direction. So continuing on with focusing on educating the public about what's in this bill and why it's so important, using the best available messaging advice. Jamie dropped in chat, and then I think we'll move on. A little tidbit that might help give you a little bit of hope, at least on the West Virginia front. So the For the People Act has 49, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, co-sponsors, Democratic co-sponsors in the Senate,
Yes.
which means that 49 senators are out in front and as proponents of this. Oh, well, I guess there's one sponsor, that's Jeff Merkley, and 48 co-sponsors. The only senator who's not a co-sponsor is Joe Manchin. But Jamie was on a call earlier today with some West Virginia folks who said that the For the People Act is plus 27 in West Virginia. Was 57-30 approval. So that's extremely good news. Because if his constituents want it, it will make it a lot easier to get this through.
Well, and the interesting thing on that is what moves conservative voters the most is when you use terms like the freedom to vote. That can move conservative voters 10 to 20 points in favor, and they're already in a plurality. So I thought that was a fascinating take on that, of using the terms freedom to vote.
So the For the People Act makes sure that all Americans have the freedom to vote. That's your a version of a tagline. Okay.
Yep.
It's good.
And there's coalitions working in Arizona and West Virginia right now. The national groups are working hard with the local groups to really work on Manchin and Sinema. And so I say follow the lead of the local groups. So.
Yeah. So we'll be updating our social campaigns with the most updated advice that we're getting from all the groups who are working so hard on this, so that it'll be easier for you guys to know what's the best advice of the moment. Why don't we, Jamie, why don't we go ahead and go on to the plan for next week and then circle back to Lori?
So next week, Congress is in recess, and so there are events planned pretty much daily next week. I am going to throw the link in chat of where you can find all kinds of information on if you want to do an in-district meeting with your representatives. There are some live events, some chalk parties, some caravans, all kinds of stuff next week. And this is all on this site. But we're social media. So next week, our focus is going to be on, yes, and West Virginia Can't Wait is actually the group running all of the West Virginia point on this. So next week, we are going to be doing education on what is in the For the People Act. So every day we will have a different social media campaign focusing on different aspects of that. So the first day we are really going to focus on voting rights. Online registration, same day registration, mail-in ballots, restoring the voting rights to Americans who have been disenfranchised due to a past criminal conviction. So that will really be the big focus. And then on Tuesday, we are going to focus on ending partisan and racial gerrymandering. Because For the People actually requires independent districts, and it mandates you can't do it based on race, and you have to keep the districts, you know, close together, so there's the same interest, you know, in a district. Wednesday, we'll be getting big money out of politics. This will really talk about all of the loopholes, the requirements to report. It even has sections on judicial nominees. And then Thursday, we are going to talk about election security, which includes, you know, paper ballots. It requires vendors to actually be owned and controlled by citizens and made here in the United States, all of our voting equipment. It deals with cybersecurity. It deals with automatic recounts. And then the last day is corruption and ethics, which this actually has some stuff on ethics for the Supreme Court. It addresses a lot of the stuff that the Trump administration did for financial disclosures, releasing your taxes, all kinds of stuff, because I think to really move people, we need them to know what's in the bill. And we also have a great new tool that you can actually even text your friends now. So we will be putting that out. So make sure you're checking your emails because we will get those out every single day. Follow the DemCast account. We'll be announcing those in the morning as well. So what's interesting on the education piece is there is also going to be a National Day of Action on May 8th. It will be to support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, where a group of about 75 groups are working on this. The first call was today, but they will actually have motorcades followed after the motorcades with celebration villages, where you're celebrating the right to vote. And in those, they're actually going to incorporate teach-ins on what is in the bill, what is in the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill, what is in the For the People, going over any voter suppression laws in your states, or celebrating the great thing like what Washington just did. And so that is something that is going to be really exciting. It was just announced a week ago. There are already 50 events on the map. And this hasn't really even been released publicly yet. So you guys kind of get a sneak preview. And this was an amazing call today. I mean, these women that were organizing this are amazing. So you'll see a lot of education, a lot of events. Things are really going to gear up now over the next month or so.
And obviously, to the extent that people on this call want to participate in those, that's fantastic, and we'll try and make that information available. And then the other thing that we can do from a social media side is normally at an event, the people who see it are the people who are there, but social media offers the opportunity to spread word of those events and of the energy and of the content, you know, to everybody. So we'll be working hard to amplify whatever we can out of these events that are happening, and sharing those in our social campaigns. Cool. Thank you, Jamie. Looking forward to that. I think it's going to be so next week's like education on hyperdrive with like a little bit more specificity to it, which I think will be fun and a little different from what we've been doing so far.
And I'll tell you, going through it, it's, as much as I've worked on it, it's even shocked me what's in the bill. So
yeah, it's a big bill. There's a lot in there, for sure. Yep. Pete asked, can we share national polling on FTPA? Do you have any on hand?
New polling is actually coming out tomorrow. And so that's certainly something we can share after it comes out. But it actually comes out tomorrow. Judging from what the Republicans said just yesterday, though, they're pretty damn scared because this is pretty popular.
Hmm. All right. Lori, do you want to, speaking of the scared GOP, want to hop in?
I will be glad to. So we know when we're talking about the GOP, some of what they're talking about is actually disinformation. So they're trying to, scare the public or their donors about what would happen if this actually is passed into law. What I want to say is I'm going to share some of their talking points with you, but what I just want to remind everybody is when we're fighting disinformation, we fight it with the truth. So anytime that you want to talk about disinformation, it's better to leave the disinformation completely out and talk about what is true. And if you feel like you have to put in what what their talking points are, always put in, why they're so threatened by us that they have to resort to this lie. And we have the power, and to stop us, the GOP are doing this or spreading this information, and then finish it always with the truth of what's happening. But basically, every time we repeat disinformation, it gets believed more, even when we're explicitly saying this is not true. So the first thing is, I think someone put in a link to the article about the Koch brothers and the discussion that they've been having, is that they really can't fight it on its own merits because it is very popular. The voting by mail, the ability to have online voter registration, to get big money out of politics, is widely popular, and not just with Democrats. It reaches across the aisle in many areas with the voters. Now, it's a bipartisan legislation, except for the GOP don't want to vote for it. And they fully believe that if it is enacted, that they won't win elections. And that's probably true in many cases, because the way they win elections is through voter suppression. Some of the talking points that have come out, Mike Pence said that it would immediately let millions of illegal immigrants be signed up and to register to vote. And that is explicitly not true. First off, federal law already requires citizenship to vote, and there's nothing about For the People that changes that. The goal is to expand voter registration for eligible citizens. That's in the act. And what it would do, though, is step up the role of government agencies to help get people voted when they interact with those agencies. So, for example, when you go to get your driver's license and you show you are a citizen to get your driver's license, those citizens would then be automatically opted into voter registration, and they could opt out at that time. A lot of states, I know here in Tennessee, we have that, but it's an opt-in. They ask the person, do you want to be registered to vote? And the person has to say yes or no. In this case, across all states, it would say, this would register you to vote. And the person would have to say, no, I don't want that. In no way does that enable an illegal immigrant, because they would have to show their permanent residency or the reason that they're legally in the states. If there are some states that do allow people here that are undocumented to have ID, including a driver's license, but those people would not be passed on to the elections board for registration. So it's just, in many ways, that is just flat out a lie. Shocking, I know. Trump, apparently, I didn't hear this because I no longer hear the former guy, but he called it a monster of a bill. And the Pennsylvania GOP said that the bill must be destroyed because Pennsylvania knows the danger of voter fraud. Well, there was only one documented case of possible voter fraud in Pennsylvania. It's still under investigation. And it was a GOP voter who registered his dead mother and then had her vote for Trump. That's it. That's the only documented possibility. So no, Pennsylvania does not know the danger of voter fraud because it has not happened. They are using that, continue to use the big lie, though, to make it like there's something that they're responding to, and that's why this legislation is needed. But every time that happens, we need to make sure that we push back on that. The cybersecurity under Trump explicitly said it was the most safe and secure election that we had ever conducted. And so that's a great way to push back on this. Another GOP talking point is that that this is corrupt, that the radical election reform bill would allow taxpayer dollars to be used for congressional campaigns, and it would federalize elections. And that is not true. The act would establish a system of voluntary small donor public financing, which would then be eligible for a federal matching of monies, but that money does not come from taxpayers. It comes from having a surcharge on settlements from corporations and individuals in civil and criminal cases. Taxpayer dollars are specifically prohibited in the bill from being used to fund elections. Another thing that is a talking point, this is a power grab by politicians in Washington who want to take control of our elections from state governments. For centuries, state governments have been running our elections, and we shouldn't change this now. So that's one of their talking points. Of course, our counter to this is that the politicians in Washington aren't grabbing power, they're returning power. They, with this act, would allow that every eligible American has the freedom to vote, regardless of their skin color or how much money they have. And it ensures that our elections reflect the will of the people. The idea that we're taking elections away from the states and federalizing them is also not true. The US Constitution clearly gives the federal government the authority to regulate elections, but the states continue to oversee the election process itself. So they run the elections, but the US federal government can clearly regulate them. And it's past time that we modernize how elections are run in this country. This bill would clean up problems we've seen with our country's voting system, getting all states on the same page. So it levels the playing field. So no matter if you live in, Oregon or Tennessee, you could still vote by mail. So that every citizen in the US has the exact same access to vote for who they want. And so those are the main GOP talking points. They don't really have a leg to stand on to fight it on its face, so they have to lie about it, basically. So, we are incorporating these talking points into our social share campaigns as well. So the against, not the lies, but the truth of the matter. And so this is why it's so important for us to know what the bill does and educate people on what the bill does. And we will send some of those. We will send those out to you guys, or post them on the website, or make them available in pushing back against some of these ridiculous.
Yeah, I think we'll make a unique resource specific to combating GOP disinformation.
Mhm. All right. We do have a letter writing campaign right now. I did drop it in chat, and it has a different message for depending on what state you're in and what type of senator you have. And so it is really important that we tell our senators. I saw, I think there was a question actually emailed to us about what do you do? How do we get this passed if you're in a state that has 2 Republican senators? Well, I'm in a state with Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty as my senators, and they're as Trumpian as Trump can be and not be Trump. So it doesn't mean that I don't need to tell them how I feel. They need to hear from us, and they need to have pressure put on them, just like on the Democratic side, we want to thank them for co-sponsoring and being democracy heroes for us. They don't get enough thanks as it is. And I love what Ron said earlier about hold us accountable. And I think we can do that. If we need to, if we can put that in there. I'm putting the link to the Senate, to the writing campaign. But like I said, it does have customized messages. It actually has customized messages specifically for Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. And, we do need these, we need them to hear us. I don't think that, from what Senator Wyden was saying earlier, we wouldn't have saved the ACA except for grassroots. And, it takes us putting some pressure on some people like maybe Romney or, I know, but, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, we've got.
I hear Romney a lot. He's a hard no. So everybody can just
But I do think
stop dreaming.
I don't think there's a Republican senator out there who's going to vote for it personally. But they still need to hear from us. They still represent us. And it's our job to hold them accountable when they don't.
And the others, they're mobilizing their folks to communicate the opposite. So, I know it feels like you're just shouting into the wind when you're, and I've got 2 great senators who, one of them sponsored the bill, the other's a hardcore co-sponsor, but I've sent them the letters just to thank them,
And a lot of times,
to reiterate it.
The letters, who do I work for? Bob Etheridge in North Carolina congressional office, and you actually sort through everything. Like you have to read everything. You have to look through everything. Everything's filed. It's more data friendly now, but like they read your letters. Like they actually count that. They'll look at that. They'll reconsider votes based on that. But you're right. There are some people who are cemented as yes or no's. I will say that we've changed those minds on different votes before. I guess we'll see how this builds. We'll definitely have the people who are already cemented in a separate kind of thing, and the top targets here and who we need to focus on. So we won't split the difference where we're spread too thin. And I think that's one of your concerns too. Yeah.
Well, and the good thing about our tool is that we can customize how the message goes to the different. If we quantify these are the people that we think maybe we could talk into giving up a little bit, we can customize the message for that. And it's
actually customized on the Democratic side right now. Like the 49 co-sponsors have one message, and then Joe Manchin has a separate message.
Get with the program.
Yeah.
So
thank
you in advance, Senator Manchin, for coming to your senses. Right. Yeah. Right.
But if you do, particularly if you know somebody in West Virginia, I'm dropping this in the chat now. There's just a text campaign where you can text your friends and just ask them to send a letter to their senator. So if this is a great tool for people that really aren't on social media, but at least they know how to get a text and click a button and sign their name.
Or if you're in a red state, you may not feel comfortable posting this on social media. So
Right.
this is a way to let your friends that you're aligned with do it privately, where that nobody is going to come down on you. When you're in a town of 500 people and 450 vote Republican. So
Mhm.
Well, and it's it's not a great place to be. I mean, Jamie and I know exactly how that feels. But what I can tell you is we can still make a difference. I didn't understand that 5 years ago, but I understand it now. And so I think it's really important that we engage at all levels, holding people accountable, advocating for our point of view, educating our friends on the text campaign actually gives them a little nugget about why it's important, and gives them an idea, about why it's important to ask the senator to support it. So, and we have to be loud. We have to be louder than the GOP. We have to. There's actually no other option if we want to keep where we've gotten so far and then continue to make strides. So, okay, I'm off my
All right.
soapbox.
Yep, and it's 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock for you,
And
for
we've
you
had
guys.
no kittens, which I'm shocked. I was sure she was going to as soon as I started talking.
Yep.
But I will post on social media at the arrival of the first kitten, because I know people are just waiting.
let them dry first, because they look like rats when they're all wet.
Yeah, they'll be cute and fluffy when I post. Trust me, I'm not going to
Okay.
live stream.
Not like the moment, not the moment. Yes.
Yeah, not the moment. You don't come out so cute.
Thank you all for joining us so much. We appreciate you so much.
Yep, and we'll see you next week. We are planning to have some cool guests next week too, to be determined, but probably related to the week of action. So more to come. We'll post it and email it and all that kind of good stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and we will make sure we get a filibuster call done up shortly, that can answer everybody's questions on that. So
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay.